This video about crafting your search is meant to help you take your research question, brainstorm a whole bunch of relevant keywords, and come up with a search strategy incorporating Boolean operators that will help bring back really good and targeted results. So we're going to start with that research question, and I'm not going to go into depth about how to write a research question exactly, but I'll just say that it is the question you're trying to answer with your research. It's complex, open-ended, clear, concise, and specific, and for the purposes of today, I'll be using the example, what are the factors that contribute to obesity in children and teens? Okay? One really cool thing is that sometimes you can then take your research question and use it to generate a starting list of keywords. And we'll do that by taking out all the words we don't need. Words like questions, articles like the or a, and any other sort of linking words to, in, all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to take all those out. And what we're left with is a starting list of keywords. Factors contribute obesity, children, teens. So hang on to those for just a moment. We'll come back to them. In the meantime, maybe go and grab a piece of scrap paper or a notebook, or keep a list running on your laptop or on your tablet, because as we brainstorm things, it's really going to make a big difference if you can jot them down. And you're going to find things along the way that you might not have expected. Perhaps additional keywords that you didn't think of, or ways of saying something that are particular to your field that you weren't familiar with, and also subject terms, which we'll talk more about. But it's great to capture these along the way. I'm a huge proponent of just jotting things down as I search to document my process. So I'll also be using our main search box here on the Mardigian Library page, which you can find at library.umd.umich.edu. It's this big search box right on the main page. This is a tool called Summon. It searches across all of our databases and our catalog of books and ebooks, and it's just immensely powerful. So if you're wondering where I'm searching, where I'm getting my results from, it's here, and you can do exactly the same thing. All right, so we had those 5 keywords. Remember, we took out all the excess words and we were left with these 5 starting words. Now, these are not the only keywords that you can use. Please go ahead and generate as many relevant keywords as you can think of. But if you're really stuck, this is a great starting point. And the next thing that you have to do once you have your starting list of keywords is to think about all the synonyms for those keywords, so any other words that could be used instead. So the computer is going to try to find those words, but it's possible that somebody would have chosen an alternate word that means similar or close to what your word means. So I thought maybe, I would also want to look not just for obesity, but for overweight, not just for children, but for youth, not just for teens, but maybe also for adolescents, young adults, and teenagers, which is maybe a different form. So now that I have an expanded keyword list, it's time to talk about Boolean operators. And that sounds awfully scary, but Boolean operators are our friends. They basically help us to make more specific and complex searches within a single search. Instead of having to do multiple searches that are simple, we can do sort of a all-in-one, really complex search and get results that are more on target to what we wanted. So they're really cool, and I'm just going to teach you a few of the very basic ones, but the very most useful ones today. We'll start with these quotation marks, and quotation marks keep phrases together. This only works when you have a multiple word phrase. So putting quotation marks around a single word doesn't do anything. It only helps to keep phrases together when they otherwise wouldn't be thought of as one single item. So when the computer sees words that aren't bound together by Boolean operators, it interprets each word as a discrete item, as its own separate thing. So it might search for any time it sees the word keep, any time it sees the word phrases, and any time it sees the word together. And it will bring you results for any time any one of those words appears. But what if I really wanted was only results in which keep phrases together was exactly like this, together next to each other in this order. Well, in that case, putting the quotation marks around them would bring me back only those results. It helps tell the computer what I really wanted to look for. Let me show you how this works in Summon with a really simple search. In this search, I've searched for the phrase apple pie with quotation marks around it. Okay, it's not exactly scholarly, but I'm just trying to prove a point. With the quotation marks around the phrase apple pie, I got 352,420 results. I haven't touched any of the other controls that allow me to refine further. This was just what I entered into the search box. And now I can show you that apple pie without the quotation marks brought me back over 1 million results. So you can see that the first way I did it with the quotation marks brought me back a more narrow and targeted set of results in which apple pie as a phrase together just like this was all that I got back. So now that you've learned how to keep phrases together, it's time to learn another Boolean operator. And that is and, or not. They're basically words that can help us include or exclude parts of our search. So that could be individual words, individual keywords, or it could be phrases that we just learned how to do in our last lesson about the quotation marks, keeping phrases together. So here's how it works. This is a Venn diagram. On the left we've got puppy, on the right we've got kitten, and then we've got the crossover where puppy and kitten are together. So if we use and, we are telling the computer that we only want it to bring back the intersection, puppy and kitten. So we are not getting anything on the sides where it's just puppy or just kitten, only the part in the middle. If we use or, we're telling the computer that we want either term, including the crossover. So everything puppy, everything kitten, and everything in between uses or. You can see how and or could be your most used, but there might be occasions when you want to exclude a term. You don't want to see a certain word or a phrase. That's when you would use not. So in this case, it brings you back only something, not any of the crossover or the term that you're trying to exclude. So this works really well, but sometimes it has to be used in combination with another Boolean operator, the parentheses. The parentheses can help us create compound queries. Just like in math, the parentheses tell us that there is some subset of our search that is one component that has to sort of be treated as its own step. So we can use parentheses to join all the stuff we just learned together. We can use phrases, we can use and, or not, and we can do this multiple times. But here's a very simple example. Inside the parentheses, I can do teenagers or adolescents. And the computer will bring me back the or, which is all teenagers, all adolescents, and everything in between. Let me show you how this works in Summon. I've started a search here where I've opened my parentheses. I've added a phrase, pediatric obesity. I've used my or operator, childhood obesity. Whoops, I forgot to put my end quotation mark here. That's why you should always double check. So I'm looking for pediatric obesity as a phrase or childhood obesity as a phrase, and I've enclosed that in parentheses to say that that is one action that the computer needs to consider as separate. And then I'm also anding the phrase risk factor. So I would take either of these, but also I want risk factor. So risk factor plus childhood obesity or pediatric obesity. Make sense? Let's hit search and see what happens. Okay, here are my results. I'm starting with 48,908 results without doing anything else. By the way, hint, hint, you can do a lot of refining on this left-hand side that I'm not even talking about in this particular video. So, we see that all the words that are bolded are the ones that the computer matched from our search. So in this particular item, it found risk factor and childhood obesity. And here's risk factor and pediatric obesity. So we see that our search is working. So there's just one last Boolean operator I'd like to add to the mix. It's our wildcard. The wildcard in most databases is the asterisk, and basically it stands in for a letter or multiple letters. So this is great when there are variations of a word or different spellings of a word. Think of the British or Canadian versions of some words that add a U, like color. In America, we don't use a U in the spelling, but in some other English-speaking countries, Australia, the UK, etc., Canada, they may spell it that way. So you might need to use a wildcard operator to get all those results. Here's another quite common one, women and woman. Sometimes it could have the word woman, W-O-M-A-N, the singular, and sometimes women, W-O-M-E-N, the plural. Replacing that spot where the A or the E would go with that asterisk will bring you back either variation. Let me show you how this actually would play out in Summon. Here I'm running a search in which I'm replacing this part of child or children or childhood with the asterisk. So it'll bring me back any variation. So it could be child obesity in some cases, and in some cases it could be childhood obesity, and so I'm asking the computer to basically bring me back either one. And then I'm adding in this additional phrase. You'll see that sometimes when my results, when my search is extremely targeted, I'm not going to get a lot of results. So if you ever run into that, feel free to revise your search by taking out some element to make it less complex. You can also do these advanced searches here in the advanced menu. If you're uncomfortable nesting lots of things together, you can continue to put things together like this. Here I've got my linking and ors or nots. So, and see, I get the same stuff, but if you'd rather compose it in the advanced search menu, it's right here to the right of the search box with a drop down. Okay? So it's time to synthesize. Now that we know all of our Boolean operators, we're going to stick a bunch of these things together. So I'm thinking about which things need to be phrases, which things might need ands, ors, or not, and which things might also need wildcards. Now, depending on your search, you might need all of these or just one, or sometimes you might want to try a search more than one way. So try it with and without and see what the difference is. Let me show you this particular search here in Summon. Well, it looks pretty long and scary, but here's that search all written in one. So let me work a little bit backwards here. I've got contributing factor as a phrase. I want to also look for obesity or overweight, and I'd like child or children or youth and teen or adolescent. So make sure that the parentheses are around the right things. Again, if you're uncomfortable with this whole parentheses thing, feel free to compose this same search in the advanced search box. Let's take a look at the results that we get. For this search, without adding any refinement, I've got 41,474 results. And if we take a look at some of these titles, it looks like I've got some really good results that will help me to answer my research question, which of course is the goal. Hooray! I also want to point out at this time that up till now we've been doing just keyword searching, but there's other ways that you can search. There's this thing called controlled vocabulary. It's basically a way that we index content in a standardized way that makes it easier for us to search across a really big selection of something, articles, books, etc. Some databases have their own unique controlled vocabulary. PubMed is a good example. They have their own terms called MESH, medical subject headings. ERIC, which is an education database, has its own thesaurus. There are some other well-known ones that are sort of a little bit different, but index terms do vary because articles are indexed by a person, not a machine. Think of controlled vocabulary and these subject terms like tagging a photo so that you could find all the photos that are tagged with a particular tag. You can find all the articles or books or something that's tagged with a particular controlled term. This information is all located in the results if you toggle down to the preview, and it's listed under subjects. So this is just one example. Childhood obesity, it has this variation with a capital C, but then you'll see that in this particular article, it's also been indexed without the capitalization. So some articles might be double covered in both, but then some might be only in one or the other, sort of like that Venn diagram that we were doing. But you might also discover subject terms that you had no idea existed, but might help you find other articles that are very similar. So it can really be a nice tool to help you to follow the breadcrumbs and find more articles that relate to what you're looking for. Let me show you exactly where this is. In Summon, if we find a result that we like and we toggle this preview link, we'll see that if we scroll down to subjects, you'll have a whole bunch of these subject terms and they're all hyperlinked, which means that if you click on one, the search box will change to just this subject term, and you'll be able to see all of the things that got that index on them. And sometimes this is a nice way to sort of see what else is out there that your search wasn't finding, but that might be related. So maybe I wouldn't have found some of these resources in a different way. In my case, there are a few other subject headings that I might want to investigate. I could also potentially use some of these things in as keyword searches, but sometimes it's just nice to look down different avenues for finding more material. Well, that's the end of this video. It's been a great ride. I hope you enjoyed it too, and that you learned some things that can help you refine your searches and get more targeted results. But if you have any questions, or you'd like a one-on-one research consultation where I can help you with your research question and help get you to this point, please send me an email, give me a call, or stop by my office. I'm very happy to help you.